Hello and welcome back to Creepy Cutie Crafty. Welcome back to yet another crafting video with me, Heather. Hi guys, how are we doing this week? So yeah, this weekend I am continuing with my whitework project. It's coming on, but I'm still finishing off all the little bits and pieces. So what I did off screen was I added a little star pattern here in the center, and that's where I'm going to do a little bit of weaving with my variegated thread and try to get it looking nice. And just see what happens. This variegated thread, it's very thick, so a lot thicker than the number 8 Perle, so it's having its own sort of special issues of trying to get things nice and even and things. It kind of wants to put itself out, and in a few places it actually has caused an issue. I'll show you in just a second. So I'm just doing like a sort of standard in out weave, like is it called a tabby weave? You weaving experts out there can let me know what that is. And I'm back at the beginning. So now I need to oopsie daisy, just come like that and put it in nice and tight. There we go. And I'm going to go back on myself. I'll be doing this at different points so I can make it weave in the right direction. So yeah, I'll just show you. So I mean, what I did was I went round and I did all of these buttonhole stitches on the outside. Some of them I mismeasured, so you know they're a little bit sort of wibbly wobbly, but I also did these French knots all around the outside with the variegated thread. But it is quite thick, and it is difficult to get a tidy French knot, especially when you don't want to pull too hard. Now I don't know if you can see here, but on this one here I actually managed to pull one of the threads through, so it came through from here and pulled all the way through as I was doing that, because it got caught as it was going through. It's one of the things that, you know, I was trying to be careful of, but it does have an ongoing knock-on effect if you're not careful. So I now know to be extra careful when I'm doing that, because once you start to take away the weave, once you start taking away threads from the weave, it does get a lot weaker, a lot less sort of structurally sound. So it's a problem if you aren't being careful, and if you aren't watching out for threads being tugged on. So yeah, right, so I've got to there, and I'm going to go to this one here like this, and then I'm going to go under there, and that one was over, so that one needs to be under. So if I go that way like that, the problem is this is an even number on this this little star thing here, so it's wound up making it a little sort of difficult to get the weaves going, you know, opposing each other as you're going round, because you need an odd number really to make it weave properly, as I have discovered. But yeah, it's looking pretty good. I'm trying not to do too much in the centre here. Going to pull that a little bit tight and just continue. It's just like a little detail that I wanted to try out, because I'd done these woven areas in the corners, and they worked out really nicely. And I wanted to see what I could do down here as well. But I think this chunky yarn is a bit too chunky for this purpose. But you know, again, I am learning. This is my proper piece of whitework, my finished piece that I'm trying to make. But at the same time, I'm not being too precious about it, because I'm very much aware that I am still only learning how to do these things, and hopefully it'll all make sense. It'll all come out in the wash, as they say. and going back on myself again, trying to make sure that I don't go back on myself on the same stitch every time, because otherwise it's going to wind up getting a bit bundled, as it's already started to do just there, you can see. But there we go. I'm really pleased with how this is going, and I've got a lot more to learn about doing white work, and I'm going to go back to my books, I think, in a little while, to, you know, check out what I want to do next. But my next part on here, after I've done a little bit of edging, will be my black work pieces. I was thinking of doing some sort of chicken scratch style pieces in here as well, but I thought I didn't really want to go too much on here, because I didn't want it to be so overly busy that you can't see anything going on, which would be problematic, because I'd like to be able to see the stitches as well as, you know, seeing how they all work together. But I can do that for the next one, so, you know, there's no problem, nothing's lost. And that's looking pretty nice like that. It's not quite how I imagined it, but I think it looks pretty good. So what I'll do is I'm just going to turn this over and tie this off, and I'll be back in a second. See you in a sec. Okay, so I'm back. Yeah, I've got this piece on here of the thread, and I've got just that amount left, so I think I'm going to keep a hold of these and leave them ready for the next task, the next whatever I do, because I don't want to run out of this thread, because, you know, it's very nice, but it is limited. I could always go back to the retailer that sold me it, but I'd rather, you know, not waste resources if I can help it. But yeah, so what do you think of that? And now, as you can see, this whole area is ready and finished. So what I'm going to do next is try to sort of even things out by doing an edging stitch around here, and it's not going to be anything too complicated. So what I've done is I've measured 5 stitches out on each side, and what I'm going to do is do the thing where I do a stitch and then go back under and over, because I want to try and make it look a bit even. So I'm there, and I'm going to have 2 stitches coming through. What I'll do is I'll scooch things around so you can see them a bit better. Hold on. Oh my gosh, all the scooching today. Let's see if I can get this in a place where you can see it, because I can talk as much as I want to, but unless you can see it, you aren't going to understand what I'm doing. Hold on. Yep, I am talking to myself again. Yeah, this is going to be probably the last week where I have this small frame. I'm going to move over to a much larger embroidery frame. So what I was saying was, I'll come in there on my my row, going along 2 holes, and then I'm going to put it tight so that I lose the so that the holes come apart slightly. Go to the next row, and do 2 stitches, and again pull tight, and then go back to the previous row, to where the previous stitch was, and go on from there. So 1, 2. Is this a bit too far away for you guys to see? I will see if I can get you a little bit closer so you can see what I'm talking about. Hold on. I've got my reading glasses on. These are my new reading glasses, which hopefully will make things a bit easier for me. But yeah, see if I can get you in a little bit closer. So what I'm doing is I'm doing 1, 2 stitches, and then pulling nice and tight, going back to the earlier stitch there, and then I'm pulling as I go so that these holes open up a little bit. 1, 2, I really do like my counted thread work, but like I said last week, I am definitely in the mood to do something a bit more freehand, which is one of the things I've started to do with my Sashiko project, which you'll see in a bit. But yeah, I'm looking to do a more free-flowing, non-counted creative work at some point in the near future, but we'll see when we get to it. And 1, 2. I was thinking of doing this with the variegated thread, but as I've got so little bit left, I don't want to use too much, and also I don't want to overwhelm the entire piece with just the variegated thread. It is beautiful, but it is somewhat dominating over the white stitches. So I'm going to do a couple more of these. Do this going all the way around the outside, and then I will be starting on the black work. I was thinking of doing a another row of white stitches in some way, but I wasn't quite sure what way I wanted to do that, just to help to re-highlight the white stitching, I think. There we go. So 1, 2. One thing again to be aware of with this is, once you start taking the warp out and leaving the weft, or taking the weft out, leaving the warp on the weave, you do make it a lot less structurally sound, a lot less able to grip onto itself, which is a problem when you're going to be stitching through. So when I've taken the threads out here and the threads out here, because I then make it looser, you can see, so here it's fairly tight, but here it's a lot looser, and here it's a lot looser as well. So just got to be careful not to stress the things that have already lost some of their strength, I guess. But yes, this is a teeny tiny and very repetitive stitch, so I'm afraid you're going to have to see this all the way through. But yes, so what have we got going on this week? What have you guys got going on this week? Have we all recovered from the craziness of the last few weeks? I mean, I think we've got some more crazy to come, but again, I'm not going to be talking about that. It's quite funny because I was on the phone to my mum yesterday, and we sort of chit-chat about various things going on, you know, friends and family, and quite often in my mum's case, who's recently passed away, because she's got lots of friends in the older generation, but of course, you know, the older you get, the more friends you have that are nearing that time, as it were. But every time we sort of say, we're not going to talk about politics, we're not going to talk about, you know, things that are going on in the world that are sort of somewhat irksome. And almost every time, as soon as somebody says that, it's like, but what about, yeah. And then the whole thing goes into a barrage of, well, yeah, it's very easy to sort of get lost in that and start doing the whole doom scrolling thing. But at the same time, I'm here trying to go, but I'm trying to make something pretty. But yeah. But yeah, so what have you guys got going on? What's going on in your part of the world? Let's get some positive news out there. Obviously this year we've got, well, in the next few weeks we've got GCSEs for Squinks. I've been talking about it for a long time. It's the last sort of few weeks before the exams actually start, so they're getting in all the cram time that they can, all the revision, and yeah, I think they're in a good position, but we've just got to get them over that last little hurdle. And then of course we've got our trip to London. Squinks has asked for a spa day. I'm okay with that, but I don't know if I'd be very much good on a spa day, because I like to do things too much. I know they're supposed to be very relaxing and things, and I know that they're good for, you know, calming the mind and so on, but I think I like doing things and like to have my hands busy and things like that. But, you know, each to their own, I suppose. So, going to try and get the squinks into a spa experience and get them into a mud bath, maybe. I think that would be quite entertaining. But then again, I would have to go in there to supervise them to make sure they're not throwing mud at other people, because I know squinks and I know that's the kind of thing that they're likely to do. But yes, but I am very much looking forward to our trip to London. I'm very much looking forward to taking squinks to various places, and it's quite funny because they've asked if they can go to places like Buckingham Palace and Westminster and see Big Ben and all these sort of things, and they've literally said, I want to go to all the touristy places. And that's all well and good, but I grew up in London, and generally speaking, like, you know, the Tower of London and Buckingham Palace and all these things, bits and pieces, they were places that my parents used to drive past regularly to get to work or to get to various places outside of London and so on and so forth, just because that's where we were. And it's kind of, well, I've seen these places. They're kind of passé for me, but you know, it's their trip, so we're going to see what we can do about it. They definitely want to go and see Buckingham Palace, which would be very interesting, but they've asked to go back to the Tower of London because they want to go back and see the crown jewels again, which I think would be very cool. But yes, it's going to be a fun week, I think, or a few days. I don't know how long we're going to go for, but we'll see how we go. But yeah, so it is all happening at the moment. And yeah, I mean, I'm still feeling my way and still learning how to use YouTube correctly. So I'm still sort of learning what I need to do and what I don't need to do. And anybody who saw my video last Monday would have seen that rather than going into the stitching, I did something else instead. I had a go at with my marbling kit, the kit that I bought from the Creative Craft Show, from Marbling for Fun, and I had some fun with it. I made a few mistakes, as you'll see in the video, and I may have had one very, very loud sweary moment, but I very carefully cut that out of the video because, you know, nobody needs to see that. But I think it's great fun, and I definitely want to have another go at it. So yeah, just make sure that you check out my video from last Monday, and you can see what you think. But yeah. So what I'm going to try and do is keep my Friday videos as fabric days, as sewing days, stitching days, and then try to use the Mondays for other tasks, other projects and things. I will be doing some stitching on Mondays as well because, you know, I have very little time, but I want to try and sort of spread out the stitching projects because I don't get much time to catch up on them outside of my videos. So trying to make sure that I'm, you know, getting ahead, getting enough done between videos that there is a noticeable difference is kind of difficult. So for the last few weeks I've been doing almost exactly the same thing with this several times over, but trying to catch up with what's going on off screen as well, but not quite getting there. So, you know, it's been a bit of a in need of a catch-up time. So that's why I'm thinking Monday, you know, I will do some stitching, as I say, but I want to try and sort of break it up with other projects as well. So yeah, just going to move that up there out of the way. Yeah, by the way, excuse the messy thumb. I managed to cut my thumb whilst I was doing some washing up yesterday, which is very helpful. But yeah, the one annoying thing about having a cut on your thumb or on your fingers when you're doing sewing is that you wind up getting the needle sticky, and then it starts to be harder to push through the fabric. So far this one seems to be okay. It's probably because it's nice and dry, but I know it's coming. But yes, so what else have we got up? Yeah, we just finished our Easter holiday. Well, Squinks' Easter holiday, so now the street's a lot quieter again. It was very, very noisy last week. But I know that when the summer comes, the summer holidays, it's going to get very loud because that's the way that this street works. We're on a little sort of cul-de-sac, which is not quite, car-free, but car-free enough that during the week or during holidays and things, when the sun's out and, everybody's feeling relaxed, people go out onto the street to have like conversations and kids come out to play, which is, how it should be really. I remember doing that. Well, I don't actually remember doing that. I remember doing that when I was in my teens, but when I was very, very little, I lived in London, as I say, and so my the street outside my house was not the kind of street that you can go out and play football on, because apart from anything else, we had it was one of the main roads in the area that we lived. So, you'd have cars zooming left and right all the time. Plus, we lived almost next door to a fire station. So, we'd have regularly fire engines coming out of there and going off and doing their emergencies and stuff. So, not very conducive to games of street football. So, yeah, it's a weird one, because I remember when I was little, I used to walk to school on my own quite regularly when I was 8 or 9, and this is in the middle of London, and yet nowadays we absolutely wouldn't do that, because I suppose people are being more aware and stuff. Not that it's any more or less dangerous, it's just that that's how it was back then. I was one of the, not a latchkey kid, but I was pretty close to being a latchkey kid. But yeah, that's how it was. Isn't it weird though how times change? But yeah, I'm liking how this is looking. It's a simple stitch. I think maybe I should pull on it a bit more before I pull the stitch through, so you get more of that dot exposure like that. But I kind of like it as it is anyway. It's not a bad stitch by any stretch of the imagination, and it's quite attractive. It's simple, but it is quite effective. I think it will help to make the overall pattern here look more centralised, look more organised. But yeah, what else have we got going on? Well, yeah, I'm going to be working at the Museum of the Jewellery Quarter again this weekend, so that will be fun. I'm really hoping that I can get a full-time, well, not full-time, a job there. It's not full-time because it's only a part-time job anyway, but it would be really nice to be back there at one of my favourite museums, just because I love it so much. I really do. It's a weird one, but we'll have to see how that turns out. won't we? Yes, we will. And what else have we got going on? Well, yeah, if you've never been to the Museum of the Jewellery Quarter, the Museum of the Jewellery Quarter in Birmingham, UK, I do highly recommend it. Not just because I work there, but also because it is a fantastic place to visit. It's weird that I'm being very self-promoty here, but I really do love that museum. It is very, very unique, and it's also one of my favourite places to go and visit anyway. Yeah, if you're at all interested in the industrial and technical history of Birmingham, it is definitely a place to visit. What else have we got going on? Well, yeah, I'm still looking for craft groups or craft lessons. Oops, icky finger. That I can join up with. There's a couple of places near me that I've want to go and find out more about, but I've just not had the time to. Isn't it always the way? But I'm hoping to find myself some classes in something. I did last year find a pottery class that would have been perfect, but unfortunately it was on the wrong day of the week. It's on the night of the week when Squinks would have been at their piano lesson, and as I'm the designated driver of the family, I'm the only person who could take them to their piano lesson. So it's a bit frustrating, but maybe next year I'll have an opportunity to try something new. But I'm also looking at embroidery classes. I was looking at the Royal School of Needlework and seeing the classes that they've got, so it'd be interesting to see whether or not I can go and join one of those. They do have amazing lessons, and apparently, well, not just apparently, but definitely, they have lessons in Hampton Court Palace, you know, the place that was built by, well, not by Henry VIII, but it was built for Henry VIII during his reign. So it's going to be interesting to see if I can do a course there. But again, time, money, always all these things that build up. But yes, anyway, I'm going to pause it there and set up for the next bit. But you can see how simple but effective that little back and forth motion is. So it makes it look lovely and even, and also you get a little bit of separation there, so you get a bit of the open weave. Not as much as I would have liked, but then again, I am only practicing, and I'll do all the way around the outside, and I'll probably finish that off screen, so keep an eye out for that one at the end of the video. Anyway, I'm going to sit up for my next bit in just a second. I'm just going to pull this stitch through, and yep, there we go. I'm going to put that onto my magnetic thing there, and I will be back in a bit. So before you go any further, let me know what you think of that one down in the comments. I quite like that one. But yeah, I'll be back in a bit. See you. Okay, so I'm back, and yep, I'm continuing with this. Now, I managed to do quite a bit of the stitching off screen last week, but I'll talk you through what I'm doing here. So for this little bit here, I'm doing something that's a little bit more sort of representative, a little bit more freehand than the other areas. I'm hoping to make this turn out to look a bit more like the Soot Sprites from Studio Ghibli films. And I initially drew these using my water-soluble pencil, which I've got here. But of course, working as I have been has meant that they've all rubbed off. So I'm just going to quickly mark on here where the two eyes will be. Hold on. If my pencil would stay in one piece, that would be great. Trying to make them nice and big and round, like the eyes in the movies rather. And I will be stitching that in a second. Now, because I'm going to be doing lots of individual stabbing, rather than long stitches, I'll be using my finger thimble first, and then when I do the longer stitches later, I'll do use my palm thimble, because that's just a better way of doing it. I'm doing this on my lap. I was doing it on my sort of tray thing last week, but I noticed when I was listening to the video that quite a lot of the video was the scraping of my wedding ring against the tray, which wasn't a very nice sound. So next time I do it using the tray, I'm going to be taking my wedding ring off, because it's a horrible sound and doesn't really enhance the experience of watching my videos at all. But you know, again, living and learning. Trying to keep these stitches behind quite nice and loose so they don't bunch up. And yeah, these are going to be hopefully some quite nice big open eyes, so that, you know, it gives that impression of like a wide-eyed little soot sprite or a soot gremlin. But yeah, and I have also been doing some more stitching off screen, so I've got a little bit more formal stitching up there that I sort of briefly showed you there a few minutes ago, but I will come back to that in a bit. My gosh, it's hard to work when you've got a plaster on your thumb. Anyway, so yeah, I was thinking of doing the whole thing with just formal stitching, which, you know, would be nice, but I do like my Ghibli movies, and I do like my representative work as well, so, you know, just thought it would be nice to have something in there that's you know, a nod to some of the other things that I enjoy doing as well. But yes, I'm trying to just sort of create a perimeter for the stitching at the moment. I'm not worried about it filling out or anything, but because I know that the water-soluble pen will disappear fairly quickly, I know that I need to get this area filled up fairly quickly and marked out before the white pencil disappears. But yes. The other problem is I've also got a little cut on my index finger, just there, which is also trying to hurt. So I had lots of adventures when I was doing the washing up yesterday, so yeah, it's not conducive to sewing, but, you know, I'm still sewing because I want to. Right, let's just loosen that up a bit, because that pulled that through a little bit too tight. Let's get that going through. Oopsie daisy. What's going on with that one? That's okay, I can stitch that in later. Let's just get that one looking a bit tidier. Pull them through. There we go. So that's the first sort of layer of that one done. And then I'm going to just come back in the opposite direction so that I can start getting this area here marked out as well, because you can see even as I'm working it's disappearing because it's just rubbing off. But that's, you know, par for the course. I've tried using white friction markers, but they never really seem to work on this kind of fabric. I don't know why. Maybe I'm buying the wrong kinds of markers, maybe I'm buying the wrong kind of fabric, I don't know. Any suggestions down in the comments would be welcome. I'm very much aware that, again, I am still only learning as I'm going on, so I'm trying to make sure that I pick up some good advice along the way. The water-soluble pencil seems to be a lot more lasting than some of the other pens and things that I've used. but it's still not quite there. There we go. That's that one there. Are you going to come through? Yes, you are. There we go. So I'm going to mark this one out now. As I'm going through with this, I can feel it stiffening up. I can feel it becoming more and more solid, more and more sturdy, just from the stitching. I've done a little bit of reinforcement in a couple of places, which I'll show you in a bit. But for the most part, it's mostly just been stitching straight onto the fabric, and that's it. But I mean, that's the whole point of Sashiko, is that it's there to create reinforcement. It's there to create strength in the fabric, so it lasts longer. So it's a very good method of creating more use out of old fabrics, which is, you know, something to be lauded, I guess. But it's definitely something that I appreciate more as I'm getting to know more about different fabric processes and so on. There is a reason why I call my Friday videos my Friday Fabric Fumbles, because I am learning as I'm going. There's an awful lot more processes that I would like to learn about, but I'm mostly just playing around, throwing things at the wall and seeing what works, see what makes pretty things look pretty, I think. But you know, it's quite funny because I mean there are quite a few YouTubers I follow, and I very much defer to them as experts, just because they are more expert than I am in the various crafts, the various methods that we use. They always like, no, I'm not an expert. I'm like, you're more expert than I am, which makes you an expert for me. Which is kind of funny, I think. There's an awful lot of, experts who are a lot more expert than I am. And, that's how it is. I like to learn about new things. I like to learn about new crafts, which is why I'm looking for a class in some form of crafting. I was looking at sort of needlework crafts and things, but I am enjoying the process of learning as I go, and learning through doing. Kinesthetic learning, I believe that's called. To quote Mr. Jazza on his own channel over there. But yeah, ow. But it is amazing what people know, and you never know until you ask them. Or every so often there'll be some random comment will reveal that people know an awful lot more than they let on sometimes. I think it's a fascinating thing to think about. There's all those sort of words, aren't there, about people having their own complex inner lives that nobody else knows about, and it's absolutely true. Most people don't reveal everything they know and everything they've done and everything they've seen, and everything they've experienced, unless you really sort of interrogate them quite hard. Because for a lot of people, what somebody outside might see as odd or out of the ordinary, they see as quite normal. But it's that's where we are. Right, so before I go any further with this one, I'm just going to show you the other part of this project over here that I've been working on. So at the back here, I've got these crosses. All I did is, again, with my purple marker, I made a grid of 1/4 inch squares rather than centimetres, so make it a little bit smaller this time. And then I did alternate squares, so on each row, going along, and then I crossed over them in the other direction. This is all set up for the pattern that I'm going to do on here, but I'm going to do that one next week so that I can finish these eyes off first. If I manage to get these 2 eyes finished to a reasonable point, I will get started on that one. But for now, I'm just going to continue with this one until I'm ready to go. I tried to sort of set up a couple of things. I mean, I've been trying to catch up with my my stitching off screen. That's part of the reason why, like I said, why I'm doing Monday makes rather than as other subjects as well as just sewing, because I want to get further ahead with my sewing during the week and over the weekend, so that I can make the weekly sewing videos a little bit more engaging, because there's more to see, there's more development, and also, you know, I can get further ahead. I'm hoping again to book some days off from my work so that I can get more of my sewing projects further ahead as well. I've had a few issues and a few niggles getting caught up with things, just because there's so many things going on at the moment. Like I say, you know, with Squinx's GCSEs and me looking for a new job, and just trying to keep going with things, but life does get very busy. There's an awful lot going on. An awful lot of it is very, very boring, so I won't, you know, regale you with those tales, but yeah, there's a lot of things interrupting my stitching time, which is never ideal, is it? Nope, I don't think so. Anyway, yeah. What do we think of that so far? I think it looks nice. I was thinking of making the sprites a little bit less even than they are, and maybe I need to make a second layer of stitches to make the pupil a little bit smaller. I think that might be a good idea. So maybe do a second row of stitching on the inside there, just to make that pupil a little bit smaller. But I think it's looking pretty good. Kind of pleased I went for this. This was very much of a spur in the moment decision that I made last week or the week before. But I think it's looking pretty good for something that I was, again, very much not planned. Anyway, hold on. Let me get myself organised. There we go. That's a bit better. Just ignore my socks in the background. Yeah, this is really, really truly on my lap. I haven't even got a blanket on my lap today because it's getting very, very warm here again, and I wouldn't want to overheat. But yeah. So what else have we going on? So yeah, I mean, like I say, I want to try and do some more freestyle stitching type projects, and I'm also looking at things like mark making and natural dyeing and things like that, because I want to start doing more sort of, not arty pieces, more sort of freehand pieces or exploratory pieces, and try to make some more expressive embroidery work, just because I want to, you know, I want to explore that side of things. Like I say, I've done an awful lot of counter stitch rather, very formal pieces of embroidery work, which I do love. I really do love, you know, making patterns and things, but at the same time I want to do something a bit more freehand, a bit more free flowing, a bit more sort of expressive, just because that's what I want to do, you know, for the sake of mixing things up, I suppose. Yeah, I mean, it's an ongoing battle to try and, you know, keep my ideas flowing, keep the ideas, you know, developing, because it's like at the start of the year I'll have well, any time of the year I'll have like 4 or 5 projects planned in mind, and probably ready to go, but by the time I get to it, after doing a project like this or a project like the whitework, I'll wind up having the idea to do another dozen things all of a sudden, and have the urgency to do those ones first. So it's getting tricky trying to keep my projects ticking over so that I can get stuff done, get stuff on the screen. And all of the things that I don't cast them aside, I don't forget about them, but they sort of go on the back burner. They sort of stay percolating in my head until I suddenly get another idea, and then suddenly it's like, oh, actually, no, I want to do this, or no, actually, I want to do that. Part of the reason why, whenever I have ideas for things, it takes a long time for me to get around to doing it, because as I'm working on other things, like with my whitework or with my, with any of my projects, I always wind up going, well, actually, this project now has generated this idea that I want to have a go at. So I'll do that first before I do the thing that I was already planning to do. And then that will generate another idea, and then that will generate another idea, or I'll watch somebody else doing something on YouTube, or find something else that was going on in a book, and then that will generate another idea, and that will generate another idea. I do write these things down. I do absolutely write these things down, and I do have a planner on the wall where I put all the things that I want to do, and I try to, keep going with with the planned things. But then I just wind up getting all excited about doing something else, and it's that energy that keeps you going, I suppose, or keeps me going. But then you wind up forgetting about the things that you actually wanted to do, which is kind of, well, I do, which gets kind of frustrating, because you then have 4 or 5 bits and pieces on the table or in boxes or whatever, waiting for you to get started on them, and you're there going, but I'm doing this one now. I mean, those memes about crafters and those memes about people who collecting craft equipment and doing crafts are 2 completely different hobbies. They're absolutely true, especially in my case. I do collect bits and pieces that I absolutely definitely do have plans to use, but then my plans change. I don't have ADHD. I don't have anything like that. It's just constantly there's things that are inspiring me to go in different directions, and I get caught doing, oh, do I want to do the thing that I was planning to do a month ago, 2 months ago, or do I go and do something new that I'm all fired up for? And yeah, there's too much inspiration out there, you guys. You just got to be less inspiring, please, because yeah, that's the way it be. And I also want to be very careful about posting videos on YouTube that are too samey or too repetitive, because I know that people aren't going to want to see the same thing over and over and over again. And I know that it's not everybody's goal, but my goal is to be doing crafts full time, and at the moment the only way I can see doing that is to be doing YouTube full time. it's a slog and it's hard work. And to be honest with you, the YouTube side of it is the part that is the least interesting. I would much rather be crafting and then putting things up for sale, or crafting and, you know, getting into a craft group and chatting about it there, or things like that. But at the end of the day, I can only go with what I have available, really. And working on YouTube is probably the best way to do it. But yeah, there you go. Not that I don't, you know, love my job as working in museums and as a historian and so on and so forth, but I can also bring that into my YouTube work as well, because I mean, researching historical crafty processes is one of the things I enjoy doing as well. I mean, I really enjoyed looking up medieval finger loop braiding. I really enjoyed doing the egg tempera painting, and I really enjoyed doing things like the black work and obviously the white work and things like that. But it's just keeping going with those things and keeping them percolating as I'm working on other things. But also trying to hold down a full-time job, well, a part-time job, is tricky, especially when, you know, you've got a family and trying to keep things going over. But if I keep plugging away, hopefully I'll get good enough at what I'm doing that I can start doing this full-time. I know I've got a long way to go yet, but, you know, that's life. But there we go. What do you think of that then? I think that looks pretty good. He's definitely looking up that way, isn't he? He's not looking straight at us. It's interesting. Somehow I've managed to create a bit of perspective on there, just with white stitches. It's interesting, isn't it? At least it's interesting to me anyway. I was thinking of making these a bit smaller, but I think that hole is actually probably about the right size. I can make the next one smaller and see if it makes that one better or worse. I don't know. But yes, that's my first Soot Sprite. Very nearly done. Going to put another little stitch in. Oops. There. And just sticking this area out a little bit as well, because you can see these areas are a bit more sort of loosely spaced, so if I put some more stitches in there, it'll make it a bit tighter and make it look a bit more cohesive. And I'm being very careful because I can feel it starting to bunch up, which is what I don't want it to do. So just trying to keep an eye on it as I'm going and not put it through too hard, because that will definitely make it bunch up an awful lot more. This does take me back to the Great Wave image that I did ages and ages and ages ago, building up the white areas with repeated stitching and controlling how thick that stitching was. It's not quite Sashiko in the traditional sense, although, you know, they did have Sashiko stitched motifs on the back of like firemen's outfits and things, and they were very, very stiff, very, very thick stitching on multiple layers of cloth, so that these firemen's coats could be soaked in water and then they'd run into burning buildings with them, and the water would protect them, as would the images of the gods and things on the backs of the uniforms. So it's interesting. I don't know if they did it freehand. I think they would probably had to draw it down first, but you know, it's an interesting idea, isn't it, really? But there was definitely representational sashiko as well as formal patterning as well. So yeah, nothing that any of us do is you know, is new, I suppose. In some ways, it's all been done before in some manner or some process, but it does wind up looking pretty good. I'm trying to make the stitches on the eyes here look whiter than the stitches around the edge, because that's more of a sort of space stitch rather than an actual defined item, whereas the eyes are more sort of defined, aren't they? So I think that's the last stitch of that one. Gonna bring my needle out here, and just pass it through there, so it's ready for the next area up there. And I'm going to have a look at this guy. I think he's turned out pretty well. He's definitely looking in that direction. He's not looking directly at us, he's looking over, which is one of the things I wanted to try and see if I could do. And yeah, this has proved that I definitely can. I think it helps that this eye is a little bit bigger than this eye, so that's quite effective, I think. So I'll be doing the other two of these off screen, so make sure that you keep your eye out for the end of the video so you can see that, and I'll show you what I'm going to do with this one next week. But yeah, look, this is what I was talking about. This is the fabric here. It's very, very loose, but here it's a lot firmer, just with those stitches. And that is also where we had that area of wear, just there. And so on the back of that one, I put an extra little bit of white cotton just to reinforce it. But that's coming together really nicely, I think. So yeah, let me know what you think of that down in the comments. And whilst you're down there, please remember to like and subscribe and all those lovely little things that help a channel like mine to grow. And I look forward to seeing you in the next video. So thank you very much again for watching, and bye bye.